as you're all aware, so that if anybody does want to see what they've missed, they have the opportunity to do that in an easy way. And I'm trying to encourage that with all that we're doing here. There are a number of things that I could have put up on the screen for you to look at, but that doesn't help you learn to get into the website and do it yourself. I'll tell you where they are, but I'm not babysitting to that level of it, but we'll have a look at some of these things as they go along. And so Renata's just put up the outline, the agenda for this morning. And you'll see there's plenty of time for or space for questions. And I have quite a few that already came in along with people's registrations that we'll talk about as a starting point. So to begin with, someone said, I don't remember what they said just a few minutes ago. That's not good. But in terms of citizenship, I think of it as people ask often what it's about outside Remembrance Day and a couple of other things. I think of citizenship as the essence of IODE. And I think of it that way because when you stop and think about it, volunteerism is what we're all about, which is citizenship to a T. And many of the projects and endeavors that IODE chapters make at all levels really could be defined right back to that, whether they're education services or whatever. And I think that'll become obvious to you as we first look at what citizenship's about, because I think there's no point in looking at what goes into the report or what you might write about in terms of your report without acknowledging that. So we're talking today about citizenship as an office at the primary level. The citizenship officer looks after all things pertaining to citizenship, including citizenship courts, support for Canadian forces, and the placement of wreaths at local Remembrance Day ceremonies. She's responsible for tracking volunteer hours, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more depth later on. And she may fulfill the role of standard bearer if the chapter does not have one. And oftentimes I have noticed as I've been preparing the national report that is a piece that is left out both at the primary level in particular. So we don't get as many standard bearer reports as we do citizenship reports. In fact, not even 25% of chapters are currently filing their standard bearer reports. It's an easy, small piece just to tag in with citizenship. And so I would encourage every citizenship officer to talk with their chapter about putting the two together for reporting in any event. So I'd like you to please note the very full description of this role in the website member resources section. And I wonder how many of you, what I'm actually wondering here, Renata, before I get into this is, why is it that all I'm seeing is Linda Greiner and me on my screen?
Okay, Catherine, if you go up onto the top part of your screen, there's a little icon that says view.
No, there isn't. But there is.
Move your cursor.
And I can't do that. This is touch and pick. Let's see. Sorry, I'll try again. It could be at the bottom.
Okay.
I pressed gallery view and I thought that would do it, but it doesn't seem to.
Yeah, the gallery view should work. I'm sorry, I can't help you with an iPad.
It's okay, it came.
Oh,
I
perfect.
pressed it again. It must have got flipped around when we were doing something else, but thank you for your patience. I may have other questions as we go along. So the member web resources section, you would look there at citizenship officer and guidelines, and there's a lengthy document there that will assist you in, from my view, not all, but some of the roles that a citizenship officer can employ as they deal with their office. So I want to know how many people have understand what the password is for the member resources section. Put up your hand if you know what the password is, please. Very good. So let's see. Bev, Slay, would you tell, there are a couple of people who admitted that I got it wrong the first time this time too. So can you tell?
Sure. It's capital I, capital O, capital D, capital E, then little cases MEMBER.
Okay. So you get into lots of things that you need there, and it's very important that you do that. I, of course, forgot to capitalize IODE. It just seemed too simple not to do it. So the 3-page document there provides a clear outline of the role and how to count volunteer hours. And it supplies how to get supplies that are available from jurisdictional chapters or on the website, and the relationship that often coincides with standard bearer at the primary level. So let me share some of this with you in a cursory manner. But I do encourage you all to go there and read this. As you'd expect, the first item of business is to keep informed about national and provincial department programs and encourage your chapter to participate in projects and programs of special concern in your community. Patriotic and historic practices, child protection, environmental issues, emergency preparedness, health awareness, and personal safety. And as you look at that list, you can see that there are a number of things that many chapters don't get around to dealing with. They deal strictly with the memorial aspects and patriotic aspects. But, you can pretty well count on being able to make a report every month based on the list of things that are included even at this level. For example, health awareness. You could talk about that in a monthly report almost every month that you're by bringing some health issue to the attention of your members in your chapter primary meetings. For example, I remember oftentimes for Earth Day, chapters will do things for citizenship. And I have a distinct recollection of my chapter, Kathleen Drope, getting together and going down to the old mill where the annual meeting was to be held, and taking our garbage bags and rakes and implements of destruction and cleaning up and it's right adjacent to a park, and cleaning up the park beside it in preparation for the IODE annual meeting. It doesn't have to be for a purpose like that. I mean, you can do it for any reason at a particular place in your community, even if it's just something that you've noticed has become quite disgusting. Along the La Fontaine Road where I live, last winter, the big deal up here, not with IODE, was diapers that kept appearing in the ditches. So, just pick up on something that's on in your community, and, that kind of thing could be useful too. So as I said, it's the essence of IODE, because citizenship is what makes us all better members of our community. Secondly, they suggest you plan a brief report like that, or discussion at each meeting, and specifically look at events that occur during the year, such as Canada Day, Canadian Unity, Citizenship Week, voting when there are elections. Look at those things and encourage your chapter to participate with that. Then there are letters of condolence that the President and Citizenship Officer could send on the death of a soldier. It's important. Condolences can be sent on events that happen in your community, such as with firefighters or police officers as well. So it's important to keep a record of all volunteer hours given by individual members. And I'd like to talk about this a bit more. you need to refer yourself to all of the outlines, because there are 10 or 15 separate comments here about volunteer hours. The rationale for us to collect volunteer hours, and people ask about this commonly, is that annually through the treasurer of IODE Canada, she is required to report on all that is accomplished by all IODE chapters across Canada to the Canada Revenue Office, the CRA. You've all dealt with them, you all hate them, it's fine. In order to maintain the organization's charitable status. So one indicator IODE is required to report is the number of volunteer hours given by its members. And this is also true of other charities in Canada. And that will lead into another point that I'll make a bit later. CRA provides this information to other government agencies and researchers. I've had that information from them myself when during my PhD work I needed that kind of data to count into the unpaid work of women, because the volunteer hour calculation strongly reflects that, particularly in IODE, and that's how that's captured by the government. And it's used by the government when they're calculating the gross national product. Your chapter might find it interesting when you're doing your annual report if you take the volunteer hours that they've contributed, just the chapter members, and multiply that by the current minimum wage to give some idea of the value of this unpaid work in Canada. So collecting these hours reflects the government's historic and ongoing attempt to place a value to the community of unpaid work. The rules around what may or may not be included in IODE totals are dictated by the federal government and not created by IODE Canada. So we will follow their rules. And we follow those in order to keep our charitable tax status. That's why we're filing with them on a regular basis. So what to include in member hours? I'll refer you here once again to the citizenship guideline paper that I suggested you look up. I think everyone should have that printed, not just available to them online. And I'll summarize those very briefly from section 2. So, and some of these are key, and the following are among those: preparing for, traveling to, and attending IODE meetings. And that's IODE meetings at any level. Preparing for IODE events and fundraisers and working at them. Presenting awards on behalf of IODE, for example, Good Citizenship Awards, IODE Appreciation Awards. Presenting donations on behalf of IODE. Attending community events as an IODE delegate. Public relations activities such as speaking to local media or to a group about IODE. Shopping for and preparing good grooming bags. Shopping for a family at Christmas or any other holiday or any other time. Knitting or sewing. And in the I'm not going to bore you with them right now, but in the guidelines for citizenship officers, knitting or sewing items that are going to be donated, the approximate times, they've calculated how long it would take to knit and crochet and assemble products here. And I look at them and I thought, if I was the one doing the knitting, it would take 3 times this amount of time. But that's really what you're allowed to report, or suggested you report at this time. So also, IODE members can report all the volunteer hours they do both inside and outside IODE, as long as it's not being reported somewhere else. For example, the Cancer Society collects the volunteer hours of its members. The Red Cross does. Other volunteer organizations that you may work for. But for an extended period of time, I worked in my children's schools, and those hours were not collected and reported. So those were valuable to report for IODE as well. One thing that has come up over the years and repeatedly from chapters is their interest in reporting volunteer hours or the support of non-members. And I did quite a bit of research into this, and and we've come up with a solution to this that really bears your attention. Most importantly, many primary chapters are assisted in their project by non-members, or what we might call adherents. Their work is often critical to an event's success and to chapter success. In recognition of the importance and value of these contributions, at IODE Canada this year has placed at the top of the report, and this is really the only difference you're going to see when we get to the report, a place for their contributions. In this, so there'll be a section there that says total volunteer hours for members, and then it will say volunteer hours for non-members. So those need to be reported separately. The hours of non-volunteers do not form part of the IODE totals that we're collecting to report to CRA, but they're still really important in recognizing the strong support that IODE enjoys in Canadian communities by members of those communities. So I can stop briefly here if anybody has anything they want to say about this or ask at this point, because I know it's been a matter of some concern.
I like it.
Norma?
Yes, one of the organizations that someone asked about was to their church. If church volunteering hours should be included in the IODE, or if IODE collects those.
That would be a question for the church.
Okay, so
are they reporting those? I'm not aware that they are or aren't. So the person should ask directly to their church.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if churches do collect volunteer.
I
report on volunteer hours.
I know that some collect them. I know that some that they don't all report them, however.
Yeah.
Diane?
It's husbands. We have several husbands helping us all the time. So now we know where to put that.
That's exactly where to put that. Perfect. Thank you.
Catherine, I don't know if you can see, but Karen Barker has her hand up.
Well, I'm working my way around my screen, not yours. So let's see. Yes, she does. Karen.
I asked this question at one of the other meetings. Should we not separate IODE work from the other work, just so we can get an idea of exactly what is done for IOD? I know it all goes in together.
Well, that if we are going to do that, that's something that will be discussed, will need to be discussed at the committee and a decision.
Right. I just think
the policy over time has, and the instruction from CRA is as I read it to you. So I know that doesn't give us instruction on separating it. But we can look at that further if that seems necessary. I understand exactly what you mean. Are there any other comments on that? Okay, should we move on? Thank you, Karen. I've put that in my notes. And I'll put that on the next committee agenda. Thank you. Okay. Okay, report forms. Now we're going to deal with these line by line. And it's not going to take any time particularly. Renata, can you put the report form up on the screen and the citizenship form first, please? Trying to figure where I put this. Well, I can use this. So I don't think you'd have any problem filling out the top section identifying the chapter. The expectation is if there's no written report that you'll fill out the top portion, and all these categories here indicates to you whether it's number or dollars that you need. First on the list, you'll see, as I've just said to you, member volunteer hours and non-member volunteer hours supporting your chapter projects. And the indication is not with respect to volunteer hours, that they are not reported to another organization, because that's the only directive we've been given about those hours. Okay, we're reminded that United Nations peacekeeper bars, Canadian Forces bars, we should be considering. The one thing that the report actually does is remind you of things that we should be considering and thinking about doing within our chapters, and that might provide a reminder to look at that and look at those going on. Promoting cultural events. Now those things will will come up in your education and services reports, but there are also citizenship activities that need to be reported here. Participating in citizenship courts and welcoming new families. This is both a number and a dollar value. A lot of chapters helped over the past year when Ukrainian families came to Canada. Citizenship and welcoming them and assisting them in getting set up. And I know that some chapters traditionally participate in citizenship courts. If you haven't done that, you should consider it, because it's a very meaningful service when you have the opportunity to see who these people are and how they feel about that. Do I have my purse? Yes, I do. Okay, presentation of flags to schools and right now, or public places. And later on, what you'll find is that now that there's a portrait of King Charles, that that would be something that could be a citizenship activity too. And when we find out how to get them at the usual price of no price, that information can be shared. Donations to Indigenous communities, attendance or promotion of National Day for Truth and Reconciliation events. Other citizenship activities, I think that's pretty straightforward. Donations to local communities, services. And then we move over on the right-hand column to provincial and national funds. Assistance to Canadian Forces and Military Family Resource Centers. They're pretty straightforward. Presentation of wreaths, both the number of wreaths and the amount they cost. I've been noticing the increases in those, in the cost of them at any rate. Presentation of community citizenship rewards, police, firefighters, and first responders. Of good citizenship or personal appreciation awards to members of the community. And there's a reminder here that I think is very worthwhile. Does your chapter participate in national or provincial volunteer service awards? They are advertised both locally and at the provincial level, and the timing is usually in the fall for presentation. The applications are required for presentation early in the new year around Volunteers Awareness Week. So it suggests here that the figures be coordinated with the chapter's treasurer, and I think that's quite reasonable. In terms of volunteer hours, I don't know how each of your chapters collect volunteer hours. Could we go back to the overall screen, please, Renata? The gallery. That didn't work. Oh, it did. So in my chapter, a list is passed around every month with respect to collection of clothes and other things that are reported by in other offices. And one of the categories is volunteer hours. So on a monthly basis, they're collected, because try to get people to remember by the end of the year and you'll have a problem. Are there any other methods chapters use here to collect hours that you could share with us? Bev? Bev, you're muted. Bev, you're still muted. Bev, could you please unmute? Anyone? Diane?
Our chapter has kept a logbook for all the years I've been in, 30, 35 years. We can go back to even in this little book for our volunteer hours, our donations, who is even at the meetings. So it's been great. We just keep that little black book and pass it on.
That's great. Wonderful. Bev, can you unmute and say what you wanted to say before, please? Press the unmute button on your device. Okay. Norma.
As a virtual chapter, we created a form and send it to each member to fill their time in and send it back. So that is how we are doing it.
That's a great idea. What occurs to me from that, Norma, is that other chapters that are sending out their agendas before their meetings, even if they meet in person, could add a form like that to the back of the agenda and have people just send it in regularly. Bev?
I finally, thanks. Actually, I was just going to say now that what Norma said was exactly what I did for the chapters. I made up a report, and then I emailed it out to each of the chapters in BC, and that has worked very well.
That's great. Thank you very much, and I'm glad you've solved your dilemma there. Anyone else? Okay, so that seems pretty straightforward for everyone. Can you go back to the screen, please, Renata?
I can. Catherine Weston had her hand up, and Jane is waving her planner around, because at another workshop, it was suggested that you write your volunteer hours in your planner.
That's what I do. Catherine?
That column.
Yes.
Catherine, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
That's okay. What I personally do is keep track every month of my own hours. Excuse me. But what our primary chapter citizenship officer, she has a spreadsheet, and she keeps track of attendance at meetings and attendance at fundraising activities. What I found is that that's very helpful, but it does a lot for our volunteer hours, but our chapter members do many other things. in the course of the year, besides attend fundraising events and come to meetings. So it's been interesting trying to get them to take account of their volunteer hours. Some are not interested in it at all. I don't really understand why, and I'm not quite sure what we can do to encourage them.
I think you have to accept people as they are.
Well, yes, there's really no option, I guess.
No, there isn't. No, not at all. Can you move that further down, please? The cursor down. Thank you. So then on the back, we have, you repeat the name of the primary chapter. Then you're going to write up your citizenship activities using the categories on page 1. This is what makes, these 3 pieces are what make the citizenship reports interesting for me, because it's one thing to add a bunch of numbers together. It's something else to understand the richness of the variety of activities that are accomplished by members and chapters, and that gives me something to write up for the national report, which in turn provides ideas for those who are reading the reports or interested in a particular area. And the same is true in all the areas of reporting. You know, there are no new ideas really out there. We're all reinventing the wheel, so let's share what it is we are doing, and particularly as things change and we need, and we might want to respond to something new. The non-member support item is a new area for you to suggest what husbands and others do, and appreciate that. And then also asking if any members of chapters received volunteer service awards from the government of Canada, the provincial government, or local community. So list what they are and who they're from. I think this is a real way of offering stewardship in maintaining our membership by letting the IODE members know that the community as a whole values them, and that we value them enough to promote what they do outside the chapter, just as granting a primary life membership to someone who makes ongoing contributions to the chapter is a very valuable way of making them feel wanted, as opposed to just recognizing some people all of the time. It can be very straightforward kind of ongoing support. And then asks about citizenship courts. So, you know, this is a pretty straightforward report. Are there any questions about any of these categories in the citizenship report? I see no hands, so let's move on to the standard bearer piece. Renata, can you put that up, please? It's just below the end of the citizenship one.
I'm going to have to look for it, Catherine. It wasn't attached to this particular document, so give me a moment.
I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question
Mhm.
while we're waiting? I went on both the IODE Ontario, whatever, and IODE Canada, but I can't find any of what you were talking about. Those, we used to get them sent in the mail, but they're on the website. So obviously this, I'm not going to the right place.
No, you go to the IODE Canada website.
Yep, I'm there.
Then you go look across the top or down the side, I forget which it is. It says member resources.
They won't even, they're saying it's a fake email and they're not even letting me go into the,
I had that experience yesterday when I was looking at the site again. So you might need to look further, and I'll ask Mary at the office to look into that issue, since it's not just me. I thought it was me.
yeah,
I always assume that techno peasant me is what caused the problem.
yeah, but they're saying, is it a fake Gmail account and all this
Well,
kind
I was able to get into it, so I know that if you look at the other entries there, you may have success like I did.
just trying each one of these other little ones?
Yes, at your leisure after the meeting, please.
Yes, but I'm glad it wasn't just me.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not just you, not just me. So there we are,
Yes,
partners in crime.
thank you.
So if there's no standard bearer, the citizenship officer should enjoy filling in this very small, not onerous document, which often doesn't change a lot from year to year. It asks you to record whether you use table standards and how many, the Canadian flag, the Union Jack, how many meetings those were present at, and other activities where the state standards were paraded or displayed. So it's really just asking you for numbers on those. And then if you could write a sentence about where they have been, that would be helpful. I think this form is very straightforward. I think both of these particular forms are straightforward in terms of what they collect. But are there any questions?
Catherine
Weston has your
Weston
hand
has
up.
her.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
I don't have the, it goes back to a view of one person after the screen changes, sorry.
okay, that's okay.
Catherine?
This one thing has bothered me for years, and so I think maybe by addressing it now, we can make the change. At how many meetings were they present at?
Flags.
The final
you.
at should not be there.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we
It's
can
me, the
change that.
grammar Nazis.
We can change that immediately, so that's easy.
Okay. That's it, thanks.
Okay, any other comments here? I find these report forms very useful outside the, I'm going to come to you in a minute, Karen. Very useful outside the IODE reporting period. It's not just to help us keep track of what we've done and what we're doing, but it helps if you have it brings things back to your mind, helps to generate ideas and projects for your chapter and for others that once I'm able to report on that, or any other citizenship officer is able to report on that. When you read those reports on an annual basis, you get new ideas. Karen Barker.
Catherine, could you explain the proper way of flying the flags and the corporate flag?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
But I will at the end of this when it goes on to the screen for you'll all be able to find it there, because what I'll do is I'll search that. I don't have an extra way to search right now and make sure I'm giving you exactly the right information, because that wasn't what I was asked to do here. But I will find the documents on that, because I know they're in there. I've read them myself very recently, and I'll have those attached along with the report form and the agenda to this report. So you'll be able to go into this meeting when it's online and find the outline that describes that there available for you. Will that do?
Yep, that's great. Thank you.
But it's also available online, but you have to search around for it. Okay, so we're if there's nothing at this point, we'll go on to considerations and comments, and I'll read some that I don't think have been addressed yet. So these were questions that people put in along with their registrations. I don't think by any of you. How have chapters honored members with years of service pins or IODE appreciation certificates from IODE. How have the pins been presented? Are they given at a particular time of year or meeting or event? Can any of you offer some insight as to how this happens in your chapter? In my chapter, we have given years of service pins, generally on one of the chapter anniversaries when it was being celebrated at an annual meeting. And the pins are presented to pretty much everyone at that time. Because, of course, at 5 and 10 year intervals, it's time for a new service pin, right? And that would also be when my chapter traditionally presents life memberships. How does your chapter do it? Michelle, I'm fingering you.
Catherine, Bev Slay has her hand up.
Now she does. She didn't when I looked here before, but just a minute. First Michelle, and then I'll go to Bev.
So our chapter recently, when we had our June luncheon, I was on the Duke, we presented the Life Membership Awards. So it was kind of a special occasion. We try to do it at the annual meetings, but it's, it hasn't been like the years of service pins have not been something that have been given out each year. We've done it in like recently last year. So we had a number of members who received their 5, 10, 30, 40 year pins and certificates.
I think that's why my chapter does it at anniversary years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bev, thank you, Michelle.
So every year I look at all our members because we've been in operation for 50 years now. So I try to figure out who's getting their 5, 10, 15, 20. And so I'll order them usually in the fall, late fall. Right now, if I order them, I'm not going to get them, unfortunately. Because, no but I usually give them out in February or March. And then maybe if someone's away, they've gone south, then they get it a little bit later on. But that's usually what I do every year, just so I don't forget. I know some people, if their anniversary that year, they've have a 5-year pin, but they really didn't join till November. I don't get into those logistics. I just do them all at the same time so that I don't forget somebody, because I hate to forget somebody. So we just do it every year at the beginning of the year, one of the few months at the beginning.
So Kathy has said they present them at the annual meeting. That's great. I think, the annual meeting is one of the obvious celebration points. We always have a celebration in June. That's why it gets done then. Any other comments here? Thank you. What exactly are the duties of a citizenship convener? I think we've covered that. Heritage and historical preservation work can be part of that portfolio if that's of interest to a chapter.
Excuse me, Catherine. Bev has had her hand up.
Where? Oh, her hand.
This Bev. This
Hi,
Bev. What I have done is I know it's provincial. However, what I do is I go and I ask the education officers in each chapter what they do about the citizenship awards in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
And I have they send tell them what the chapters do, and from there I get the names of the provincial or the students within the province who have received the citizenship awards. And that helps out as far as the kids are concerned as too, instead of just leaving it in citizenship as such.
Right. And so these things would be promoted and reported on both at citizenship and in education.
That is correct.
And that is quite intentional. In my chapter, the citizenship officer presents the citizenship awards in the school.
Mhm.
Well, it could just as well in another chapter be an education officer or both of them.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that leads to another question that's been asked here. Seems to be an overlap of reporting on both citizenship and services reports. Why are national donations, Canadian Disaster Fund, Services Fund, Snack Pack, on several annual reports such as the Treasury Report, Citizenship Report, and Services Report? I think we all have come to an understanding of that, which is great for the people that are here, not so helpful for the people who are not able to attend today. They're suggesting to us that it's repetitious because they can be seen on the main Treasury Report. The difference here is that you're both getting the number and hopefully you're getting some description of what's going on and why. And that's as important as the dollar or numerical value of an item, in my view. And that's pretty much where I would stand on that matter. Are there other opinions out there? So I think that that I really want to direct your attention back to the member resources piece, member resources, citizenship officer guidelines.
Yeah, that, where? Yeah.
On the IODE Canada website. And you're going to get a lot of information there. And you're going to get some suggested citizenship projects.
We lost Catherine. I'm sure she will be back.
Well, internet can be intermittent.
It can be. Would you like to carry on, Jane?
Sure, but I don't know what the questions were. Catherine didn't share them with me. So she's working her way through them. Do any of you have any of the questions that Catherine would have been working from that haven't been answered yet? And I'll do my best.
I'm not computer literate, and all I keep getting is so I have to go to the web page or something. Not
yes, I have written down to call you after this meeting.
Thank
you. You're welcome.
Because I can't even get on it in my computer. I'm only looking at my phone because when I went to the computer to get this Zoom connection, I couldn't connect. I had to go back to my phone, and this is why I'm sitting here looking at my phone, no access to anything. But then I'm trying to get something on my computer, and nothing is.
You did well to come. I will call you after the meeting, and we'll work it through if we can. I'm not a genius when it comes to computers.
Jane, it's Michelle here.
Yes.
I don't have the questions, but I think it's worth talking more about acts of kindness, because I think that we are doing a lot of things for other people that we do not necessarily, I don't think we necessarily record them or send them into IODE. I think about the person who will pick up some groceries for a neighbor who's, needs some assistance at a certain time. Maybe taking a friend to the hospital. And I don't think that we always think to record those acts of kindness. So I just thought it might be worth to discuss it.
That's a wonderful idea. Thank you, Michelle. And Catherine is back.
Sorry about that. Despite the fact that it's plugged in, the iPad ran out of battery. So you all disappeared. And I don't even remember where I was, except to say that, I think once again, I just have to really direct you to the guidelines for citizenship officers, because among the other things, and I think I was getting to the point where I was going to say that supplies available from your jurisdictional level as well are listed there. Additionally, under member resources there is a section called Citizenship Officer. It's under Member Resources, IODE member. And in that section, there are all the documents that you might need to apply for things for your chapter as an officer. The application for the Canadian Forces Bar, for the United Nations Peacekeeper Bar, for Good Citizenship Certificate, for the guidelines, Karen, the guidelines for the use of the IODE corporate logo standard, the guidelines for flags at a funeral of a member. So that's a start to some of the questions that have been asked. See, I knew I'd seen that lately. Okay. Participants? No, that's not working for me. In any event, is there anything else that you would like to discuss? I'm going to put these pieces, ask Renata to put them at the end of I'll send them to her and ask her to put them at the end of the video of this session that's been recorded and will be on the IODE Canada website. I'd like to thank you all for being so prompt in participating today and sharing your ideas around things that we can do and how we can make these reports, because that's really all we were dealing with today, how we can make these reports useful for our chapters and in generating new and interesting projects for primary chapter members. Yes.
While you were gone, a lady mentioned about different acts of kindness.
Yes.
Do.
Yes.
And really, nobody reports those.
No, but it is listed in the guidelines for citizenship officers.
I know.
Which we all need to be reading.
Oh, yes. But our own members, they don't even think about it. They just drive somebody to their appointments and that's just what you're supposed to do.
That's right. Well, and it's very much a case of, IODE members are good citizens.
Yes.
Not just through their IODE work, but through the other pieces which we're asking that you consider reporting.
Yeah. Yeah. I will bring that up to our meeting. Get the ladies to keep those in mind.
I don't have, I'm talking to you from my telephone.
Okay.
So I only have a picture of my head and one other. And it makes it difficult for me to sort of manage the meeting here. Is there anything else that we need to be saying or doing at this time?
Catherine, I was going to add to the comments about encouraging people to report acts of kindness. One of the things that happens sometimes with a chapter is that they have a momentary glitch with their principal fundraiser and they're short money and they think, good heavens, we have to retire as a chapter because we don't have any money. And it was the same during COVID, remind chapters that the various acts of kindness which they do, either as a chapter or individually, are every bit as important as the spending of money, or perhaps even more important, because sometimes you're the only contact. I remember a young chapter member. There were a lot of refugees who arrived in St. John just when COVID started. And she said, good heavens, the children are locked up with nothing to play with. And she's a photographer. She created books, got somebody who spoke Farsi to label them, and she made pictures of everything in the city that the people would have to visit when COVID was over and that children would need to know about in both languages, English and Farsi. And they were invaluable to the kids. And that was an act of kindness to think of children in that situation.
It certainly is. And sometimes the acts of kindness, as you've all mentioned, become more important in terms of a chapter's contributions as the chapter ages. Well, thank you. And I guess unless there is anything more, we should draw this session to a close.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.